When A Link to the Past came out, colored me excited, but this is something that in my opinion was very, very epic. In my opinion, A Link to the Past is one of the best Zelda games ever made. So, when I turned on A Link Between Worlds and got this, I was even more excited. A Link Between Worlds, more than 2 decades later, after A Link to the Past was released. A Link Between Worlds is the first official sequel to A Link to the Past, which made me incredibly, incredibly excited, and which is why I am here to tell you today my review and what I personally give it going through this game. This is Zende here, of course, from the Golden Land, and I'm here to talk to you about The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. The first thing I want to talk to you today about, of course, is the music score. I mean, if you can hear it, clear as day, it's exactly the same thing as A Link to the Past music. So, I'm going to try my absolute hardest to be able to play this and talk to you while I'm playing. But first of all, as you can see, I'm wearing a red tunic. The game is very similar to A Link to the Past in terms of the items and some of the upgrades that you get, and even some of the pieces of hearts that are located in the game. If you look on the bottom screen here, you got the map, which I think is a great addition to the game. It shows the entire overworld map of the Light World, supposedly the Light World, and if you press this button right here, it brings up what is now known as Low Rule, although otherwise it's very similar to the Dark World that was like in A Link to the Past. It's not the Light World and Dark World, it's High Rule and Low Rule, which is basically the concept of the story, which we will get to later. But as you can see, it's pretty much exactly the same thing. You know, Link moves around via the joystick, and you know, you hit the B button to swing your sword. The controls themselves are very, very, very good, and very intuitive, very, very smooth. I do like the controls an awful, awful lot. And truth be told, all Zelda games really kind of need to be this easy to play. You got the B button, the A button is grabbing stuff, and then actually, truth be told, this game allows you to also equip 2 items, one on Y and one on X. Right now I currently have the bow and the hookshot equipped, which brings me to another point of the game that I really like a lot, the items. By clicking on the item screen on the bottom, it brings up the items that you are allowed to get in the game. I put them in the order that you relatively close to what A Link to the Past inventory would be, along with the 5 bottles at the end. What I like about the items a lot is they're completely open to you at the beginning of the game, for the most part. If you go into this house, which is normally Link's house in A Link to the Past, it becomes Ravio's shop. Ravio is a character that you meet in the game that asks you if you can live in your house. After agreeing so, he gives you a bracelet, which has some mystical magical powers, but then eventually turns your house into a shop, where you can essentially rent the majority of the items in the game, to the exception of the lamp and, like, your bottles. But you can rent the items. If you choose to rent the items, they are at a small fee to rent them, and if you die, you do lose them. Eventually, Ravio does allow you to buy the items permanently for a very, very hefty price, but buying them allows you to completely upgrade them, which, as you can see here, right now I have the Nice Fire Rod selected. As you can see, it's called the Nice Fire Rod. You have the Nice Bow, which shoots out 3 arrows, the Nice Boomerang, which is pretty much faster, the Nice Hookshot, which is significantly faster, the Nice Bombs, which is much, much larger of an explosion. And you can pretty much upgrade all the items to be pretty much whatever you want them to be, or not whatever you want them to be, but you just equip them, or they become stronger, bigger, and badder. But you have to own them in order to do that. In order to equip them into nice items, you have to collect one of the side quests in the game. You collect these little things. They're called, if I'm pronouncing it right, Mayamas. There's 100 of them in the game, and they're evenly distributed, or not evenly distributed, but they're distributed between High Rule and Low Rule. So, you know, there's a little bit more than just heart piece collecting, which is kind of cool. There's of course 20 hearts in the game, but if you notice here on the inventory, the bombs and the arrows do not have an actual number by them signifying how many I have or how many I currently have. Basically, how it works is every item is built off of the stamina gauge, which we've seen plenty of times. If I shoot an arrow here, my stamina gauge goes down, as you can see. You can use it as many times until your stamina gauge is completely gone, and then the game obviously tells you, no, you can't do it anymore. You gotta wait for your stamina gauge to recover. Hookshot is same thing with the hookshot, the boomerang, everything recovers off your stamina gauge. What I love and hate the idea. It makes rupees kind of useless in the game. There are a few things you use rupees for, but however, like, you know, permanently purchasing your items, things like that. But you never have to really, it's nice because you never really have to, like, watch your inventory levels, but But in my opinion, it kind of takes away from the game a little bit in terms of after you have everything complete, if you want to just roam around and have some fun, you still there's no purpose to have rupees ever. So this is really difficult to actually play with one hand. But anyway, so here I am just going through. And like I said, if you're familiar with the Link to the Past world, this is pretty much straightforward, the exact same world. There's a few added select things which is kind of nice. Like the power shot destroys bushes or grass. I think that's kind of cool. Another thing I really liked about the game that I've complained about in previous Zelda games is exploration. I love that the world is completely open to you 100% for the most part from the beginning of the game. There is no real direction at all whatsoever, except for at the beginning of the game where they tell you the first dungeon to go to. Once you get the low rule, there is no direction. You can defeat all 7 dungeons in any order that you wish, which I think is really neat. The worlds are completely open to you as you want to play them. So I've always complained about the idea that the game, stops you from going specifically to specific areas until you get to, a certain item or a certain part of the storyline or whatever. I love that you are completely free to do whatever you want in this game. Absolutely fantastic. Of course, you only can save at the bird statues here, which is kind of a deterrent from the game. I wish you could still save it anytime you want. However, what I like is if you hit the little bell down here, you can warp to any of the bird statues. So let's warp to Kakariko Village. So here we are in Kakariko Village, pretty much designed exactly how it is in A Link to the Past. Absolutely amazing. Music and everything stays this way the entire time, which is really neat. We'll go this way. So I love, like I said, I love that the exploration is 100% up to you. I love that the items are open to you in the game. Now, dungeons themselves are kind of different. They don't really give you dungeon items anymore since you have all of them in the game. The game just assumes that you've picked them all up, which of course is a pretty safe assumption, but it also is kind of weird because if you get to a boss or an enemy where you don't have the item to kill them, you're pretty much SOL. You gotta make sure you pick up every item and just never ever die or start buying them. This part brought back a little bit of nostalgia and some memories. This was really neat. I also like how the world has changed a little bit in comparison to A Link to the Past world. I mean, it is obviously the same exact world. However, they changed some things to be a little bit more convenient in my opinion. And I'll show you what I mean here real fast. Let me just get there. But, let's see here. So here we are back in Kakariko again. And you do get the boots, you can run. You can also run diagonally in this game, which is kind of neat. Link moves kind of pretty quick, which is really nice. This is the part that I like. The world map is connected right here. In A Link to the Past, it wasn't. This brings me right south of the castle, if you see on my map down here. Which is really kind of cool. This is something that was added. I noticed that instantly. Another thing that was added is this path up here. Totally awesome, because this brings you right next to the castle as well, as everybody would know. All in all, the game's presentation overall is very well done. Dungeons. Some dungeons in low rule do give you item upgrades. You get a shield in one of the dungeons. You get your armor upgrades in one of the dungeons. In the final dungeon, you get your final armor upgrade. So in that aspect, it's really kind of cool, but it's also really neat that you don't have to strive so bad to get the dungeon item. The game just assumes you already have all the items and that you have to use them to defeat the bosses or the enemies. Boss fights are a blast. I think they're very well done, very even, and a lot of fun to play through. All in all, the game is presented very well, except for one aspect in my opinion. And that would be the storyline. The storyline agitates me completely. At the beginning of the game, I don't want to ruin too much, but at the beginning of the game, you're introduced to a character named Yuga. Yuga comes from the world of Low Rule, and decides that he needs to collect all, the supposedly good-looking people. More or less is pretty much what it is. So he collects all the 7 sages and then eventually abducts Zelda. So what's your goal? You need to go save Zelda. The game does nothing to actually push you forward at all whatsoever. Especially once you get to Low Rule, a big climactic event happens. After you get all 3 pendants and you pull the Master Sword out again, a big climactic event happens in the game. And what I really don't like is it's the only time you really truly see something in the storyline, except for way at the end of the game, after you defeat all 7 dungeons in Lorule and get back to Lorule's castle, and that's the only way you actually get like a storyline hook again. Even when you rescue all 7 sages, all they say are just small little lines like, make sure you go save the other sages, or you're doing a good job, Link, keep it up, blah blah blah. There's nothing that actually fills in storyline or what's going on. And that bothers me so much. Game Informer gave this game a perfect 10 out of 10. And I agree in a lot of aspects that they said. It's very nostalgic, it's very good. The puzzle designs are awesome. The dungeons are executed really perfectly. The boss fights are fantastic. But in my opinion, you know, like the controls are good, the music's fantastic as well, but in my opinion, it's missing story. In A Link to the Past, you had nothing but story. That's all you got out of that game was storyline all the time. Totally awesome. In this game, storyline is a little off. It seems very kind of put together real fast and a little shoddy in my opinion. Very copy and paste. So I don't want to ruin it for anybody. The game is very good. If you are a fan of A Link to the Past at all, definitely pick up this title for sure. There is one thing I have not shown you yet, and that is, of course, how you get to Lorule. Everybody knows in this game, you can morph into the walls. You walk through these little cracks that are in the walls, and lo and behold, I am now in Lorule. Lorule is a dismantled world. It is cracked apart, and you can't access all of them perfectly fine. But listen to that music. I love it. Anyway, as you can see, the world is destroyed. If you look at the map down here, you can see that there's actually lines separating each segment. So you have to find all those crevices from Hyrule that will transfer you to Lorule. All the little slits that you see, like the one near what would be my house. I can't really get it into focus, but right there, those are all map spots, or those are all spots that you can use to go between Hyrule and Lorule, which is really kind of convenient. And it's really nice that they at least mark it so you can make plans off of things like that. This, as you can see, is a very small little spot, and I am moving on my map on the top screen, by the way, so that you're not confused. But, oh, and I got kicked. Using the R button will bring up your shield, so there is a little bit of skill in terms of fighting and stuff, which I think is really kind of neat. So, Lorule is a little dismantled, and you have to figure out a way on how to get it back together. So, all in all, I have a love-hate relationship with the stamina meter. I think it's a great idea, and it brings a little bit of freshness to the game. I love the ability to go into the walls because it brings a lot of puzzle aspects to the game, especially with collecting pieces of heart. I do like the Lorule Hyrule. It's a very familiar world. You know, it's a world that I've explored through already. I love it. The final fight in the game is a blast. It's challenging, but it's fun. In addition to all of that, the inventory is great. It's items that you need. It's not really like tacked on items, like how past Zelda games have felt. Very well presented game, and the game, I think, in my opinion, looks gorgeous in 3D. You can't tell it because it's not 3D right now, but like the water areas down there are very deep, and in 3D it looks physically deep. It's really cool. There's also a cave up on Death Mountain that is really, it's like a lava cave, and you have to jump from platform to platform in the lava cave using, you know, like you have to use a platform above going down to a platform below, and when it's in 3D, it's really cool. The story's very weak. Like I said, very copy and paste. Especially because Yuga seemed to be a very interesting character, and he only shows up like twice. And like I said, I don't want to ruin too much, so I'm not going to. Definitely play through the game and find out the storyline. You know, it's definitely worth it. In my opinion, the game does everything that a Zelda game needs to do. Perfect inventory, perfect music score, perfect gameplay, perfect dungeons, perfect boss fights. Everything is perfect except for the one thing that Zelda's known for, the storyline. And in my opinion, that is enough to knock it down some points in comparison to the perfect 10 that Nintendo has done nothing, you know, or not Nintendo, the Game Informer did to give it. So, with that in mind, I would have to honestly say, with all the perfection, to the exception of the minus the story, which is enough for me to cry foul. I do have to honestly say, I can't give you my number yet. I do, however, want to tell you one final thing that I forgot to mention, I just remembered about. The Piece of Hearts. Everybody knows that I am sick and tired of going through ups and downs, left and right, minigames to minigames to collecting heart pieces. The most annoying thing ever. This game did it right. Once again, small amount of heart pieces, 28 of them. In comparison to A Link to the Past, 24. And what's cool about them is the majority of them are just laying around. You only have to legitimately earn a couple of them. Now, some people will be mad about that, but I love it. Because Piece of Hearts, once again, are exactly what they're meant to be. Just fun little tidbits to get, so that you feel accomplished when you find one. Not that you have to go through everything in the world to be able to actually get it into your inventory. Like previous Zelda games. Oh, another cool mechanic, they added diving. So, with all that said, with all the perfection, all the overall exploration being as perfect as I think it should be, the graphics, the music score, the controls, 100% perfect. And if I could rate it completely off of nostalgia and all that stuff, it'd be a perfect 10 out of 10. The storyline, though, however, lacks. And because the storyline lacks, and because it seems very, very cut and dry, very copy and paste, and in my opinion, it's a very cheap way in getting the Triforce reiterated and Ganondorf reiterated into the game, I have to give the game a 9.5 out of 10. Now, I would have downgraded it more for story, because story is incredibly number one, very important to me. However, the game is so good that I just can't knock it down that much. So this is Zinday's official review of The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. It gets a 9.5 out of 10.